So we've done this song in class, so hopefully you remember it and you know some stuff you would write about anyway, but a little reminder, Move On Up by Curtis Mayfield.
Hush not, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand you by and by. Just move on up toward your destination, though you may find from time to time complications.
So, things to remind yourself about with this song. Curtis Mayfield released this in, I think, 1969, 1970, but he'd also been making R&B records in the early 60s, and he'd been inspired by some of Motown's stylistic ingredients, which is why you're hearing that falsetto voice. Remember, in the early 60s, Motown liked the idea of having male singers with falsetto voices. They thought the softer tone of that, the lighter tone, might be more appealing to a white audience. Curtis Mayfield's vocal style lends itself nicely to that. There's also some violins in this kind of arrangement that you can hear in the background, and they were features of Motown music. However, Curtis Mayfield has moved music on into a new direction that became known as funk. All the way through this track, notice it's nearly 9 minutes long, all the way through the track we only really need 2 chords, E minor and B minor, but there's this little passing funky accent where we visit the F sharp minor just for 2 little accents. I remember when we would count this in, it was a little bit awkward because you had to go a 1, a 2, a 1, 2, and it kind of, the accent falls on beat 3, and every time you hit a chord, you're not landing on the 1, you're actually landing on the 4 and the syncopated accent just before the 1. It's like an anticipated bass beat, and it means that the song has this kind of jerk in it that gives it a bit more kind of a funky feel. I'll play a little bit on the acoustic guitar just to try and accent it. So that little accent there is falling on the and after the 4, not on the 1. If I played it just landing on the 1, it would sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So it doesn't have that kind of jerky rhythm. So the anticipated bass beat, the early kind of 1, is a key ingredient of the arrangement of the song. And because it's the same chord pattern all the way through, other things have got to add some complexity to make it an interesting track. It's partly we've got this head horn arrangement where we hear the trumpets go da 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 da. Acts a bit like a fanfare. It's like announcing that this song has something to say. But lots of the notes of that riff are syncopated and off the beat as well. So even the horn part is syncopated and, you know, not as easy to play as other riffs might be in R&B music. So we've got the falsetto voice, we've got the syncopated kind of chord accents and riffs going on. What else have we got? Although the tempo is not kind of very fast, probably about 130 or something like that, there's that sense of energy in the performance by the percussion that's playing in the background. It's there all the way through, but you'll notice it particularly after the kind of the breakdown, which is around about here. So the drums are really funky, they're playing beneath the rest of the record as well, and there's lots of little grace notes there on the snare and accents that are falling on the cymbal on beat 4 where you wouldn't normally have it. Listen, over the top we hear another layer of percussion coming in now, congas, and over the top of that some bongos. Part of the move towards funk music was musicians that had been jazz or R&B musicians embracing the more African kind of qualities of the music. And that breakdown, having a drum breakdown with 3 drummers all playing complex kind of rhythms, you wouldn't have got that in early R&B music. It's like black people now celebrating their African roots. Likewise, if you see performances of Curtis Mayfield, he's banned all of Afro hairstyles as well. It's this moment that was tied in with the politics of the era from 1968 when the Black Power movement become more prominent. This idea that rather than trying to integrate in white society and adopt certain kind of musical ingredients of white society or the politics of white society, black people are saying, no, let's celebrate our own culture, let's embrace the African qualities of our music. Let's not try and sell music to white people and sweeten it and water it down. Let's kind of make it complex and kind of have some pride in this. So this kind of drum beat is sort of significant in that way. Let's go back to the song a little bit.
Toward your destination, though you may find from time to time complication.
And remember, lyrically, this isn't like a love song. This is Curtis Mayfield singing to the black community. He's a respected member of it as a kind of star. And he's saying, let's move on up. Let's kind of move our expectations up. Let's move our expectations of what we can get from society, politically, whatever. And he's saying, move on up to your destination, though you may find some complication. Take nothing less than the supreme best. It's like, let's have some kind of pride in ourselves. Let's kind of fight for a better kind of experience for black people. And just to enhance the Move On Up title, he slips into his highest note ever, move on up, and he really goes up into his kind of top register. And that's an example of word painting there, where as he sings the word up, his voice goes up as high as it'll almost go. And it becomes a kind of a bit of an anthem for black people, which is why the song was sometimes used by people in the black political movement. I think Obama used it in his campaign, and Kamala Harris used it in her campaign to be vice president in the last kind of year or two.
Bite your lip and take the trip. Though there may be wet road ahead and you cannot slip.
I notice how the guitars and the percussion are all enhancing the kind of 16th feel, the semiquavers, which again is giving the song energy and pushing it forward, making it seem that it's perhaps a faster song than it actually is. And 16ths are a key ingredient of funk music. That's the sort of almost the dominant rhythm of funk music, whereas maybe the backbeat is perhaps more the dominant rhythm of, say, R&B music or the swing sound of jazz music. The other thing to kind of to think about with funk music is there was this sense of we don't necessarily now have to just appeal to kind of radio play and the singles chart. This was as albums were coming important, and that's why the track's kind of 9 minutes long. This idea that you can have your kind of pop song, which will end after about 3 minutes. This is towards the end of the song.
Just move on up. Move on up.
We have this kind of almost the whole song again as a kind of jam, a looser structure where the musicians in the band can show off their musicianship. Unlike at Motown, where kind of solos and improvisation was restrained slightly, funk musicians were enhancing the fact that, yeah, let's have some instrumental kind of moments where we can break it down or stretch it out and really show off our skills. So we've heard the drummers already, but you'll hear like there's a sax solo comes in. Sections where there's not even like a soloist going on, you're just celebrating the groove of the record. You know, it becomes dance floor friendly. This is why a lot of these records were then sampled in the late 70s and 80s by hip hop people, because there was these moments that they could kind of copy. It's very very easy to sample those kind of 4 bars of music there. And Kanye West took the entire kind of track, including the horn part, and slowed it down and used it as a sample on Touch the Sky, so you could perhaps make a reference to that too. Plenty for you to write about anyway in a paragraph on Curtis Mayfield.